The Attack on Titan finale. Eren is about to win, but is Eren right? So what's up guys, Foxen here. Perhaps the more important question, is Eren truly free? If you had any doubts, the latest developments in Attack on Titan chapter 131 should have firmly cemented where you stand. Yeah, that Code Geass route. Is that still possible? So be sure to also smash that like for Mr. Freedom, ring the bell, and subscribe so YouTube actually sends you these videos, and let's make some pancakes. And just a quick thank you to Bookwalker for sponsoring. You can find the latest Attack on Titan manga volumes plus chapters there. If you're craving more Titans, why not give Attack on Titan Before the Fall a try? Link below. Like a fallen angel, what's the truth? Funny how that hits so different now. Even more funny how it got so much hate when it came out. Not only the change from Linked Horizon, but also this different tone from the previous openings. I do want to echo my previous thoughts from that time, which are more relevant now. How that opening fit what was going on in the Attack on Titan manga so much more. Of course, you can't forget the Eren Tokyo Ghoul clown scene. Older Eren looking off into the distance, while Kid Eren failing to get his attention. Eren here focused on a single goal, freedom. This only feels similar to young Eren spreading his arms with the freedom remark. A fallen angel indeed. Getting into it, trying to understand Eren. Perhaps part 1 of this Eren series if you do want to see more. Not too long ago, Mikasa did claim that Eren had never changed. From the time that he idly viewed the giant walls, back when thick Reiner set the Titans inside, to the time that Eren reached the ocean and beyond. Freedom has always been the challenge and goal of this shonen hero. The Survey Corps ended the Hell of the Titans, only to discover the second level hell with the basement reveal. This actually does make me think of Fullmetal Alchemist. Humans cannot gain anything without first giving something in return. To obtain, something of equal value must be lost. The latest Attack on Titan chapter gave the world a rude awakening with how far Eren is willing to go. Starting off with Marley, moving into a group of people who aren't even Marleyans, turning little kids into this messy berry smoothie. It feels very fitting that you could go back to one of the most impactful quotes of the series from Uncle Kenny, that everyone in this world is a slave to something. How very Isayama-like, to make the guy obsessed with freedom that called other people slaves, a slave to and binded by that very ideology. At a minimum, being motivated and influenced for that purpose to a fault. Which makes me ask you, even more important now, how many of you are still on Team Yeager? It really comes down to siding with this massive global wipeout brought by Eren, or against it, that being the Survey Corps plus warriors plus whatever remains of the world. Do you agree? Is Eren right? Is the guy justified? I should also point out you don't need to feel bad for siding with them. You and I as readers do have the great privilege of not actually being there to experience these awful series of events, which does make it a million times easier and even acceptable to side with what seemingly seems like Eren's plan to kill hundreds of millions of people, as crazy as that sounds. Likewise, I do ask you to consider this point if you are completely anti-Eren, especially when seeing someone else full on support Team Yeager. Looking at what has led Eren up to this point, the attack on Marley. I know this was a huge turning point for some people hating on Eren, either due to the attack on Marley itself, or leading to the eventual end result of Potato Girl Sasha dying. And I probably will examine this in more detail in a future video, but let me just say I saw Eren's actions here arguably justifiable. For anyone that thinks otherwise, you gotta keep in mind the context of the situation at hand. Willy Tiber had just taken to the world stage. He was essentially using Eldians on Paradise Island as a scapegoat to bring the global powers together for this unified attack. Eren waited until the final possible moment, which ultimately confirmed what he already knew. You had a literal declaration of war towards them from Willy. It doesn't really get any clearer than that. Eren was simply answering back. Loudly, I may add. From this attack on Marley, the majority of casualties should have involved soldiers, but like with any type of war or battle scenario, outsiders may have been involved too, which did happen in this case. Eren, along with Armin, were directly responsible for the deaths of many Marley people. On the flip side, arguably due to the Marley propo, these Marley citizens did side with Paradise Island getting wiped out too. If Eren had not initiated this attack, Marley would have done the same, or much worse over at their home. Eren simply struck first. And yes, pointing out the obvious, I am no expert in wars, but this seems like an appropriate response for someone declaring war on you. And I'm curious, so definitely voice your thoughts on this below. I got a suspicion that as time has gone by, the majority of Attack on Titan fans are mostly on board with this. I will also point out that Marley eventually did just that. This attack on Eren's hometown, their district. Thankfully no citizens were there at the time, or the innocent people getting killed would have skyrocketed worse than at Marley. Alright, so getting into the latest and most controversial event, the attack on Marley V2, or should I just say the attack on the world. You had Shinigami Eren plus the big boys that came knocking at the Marley door. Pretty much any sort of resistance was futile. Any Marine global forces that Marley had stationed there were instantly wiped out. You could hardly call this a battle, but Eren won this. Still, Eren and his Red Army kept on advancing. I'm gonna give you freedom. Freedom from those meatbags. Naturally, you can't really tell how much time has actually passed since they started advancing on the ground, but this whole situation is bad. At the very least, tens of thousands should be dead, if not hundreds of thousands. Most of these shouldn't even be soldiers or military at this point, but a majority just regular innocent people. Within a few days, this should extend to millions dying, including non-Marley and associated people. So, final attack on Marley plus the world. Are you still 100% behind Mr. Freedom? Were those abs worth the cost? I mean, screw Thanos. Eren ain't taking 50%, more like 90% plus. I imagine this should definitely have most of you split. Have you now turned on Yeager? Let me get a feel based on your comments below. As for my thoughts on the series of events, I'm still waiting and sure that something's gonna get revealed by the finale. But at this moment, it seems like Eren is going to carry out his plan to completion. Killing hundreds of millions? I feel like I'm only stating the obvious here, but of course I don't agree with any of this. What makes things even more clear is that it's not like there were no other options. Like I highlighted a moment ago, you could hardly call this a battle, but Eren had won this in a matter of seconds as soon as he got to Marley, which leads into the issue with Eren's actions. Unless you're all missing a few key pieces of info, only known by Eren and Isayama, you do have to ask why. Why not do the obvious course of action? Hange had already been prepping the baby rumbling demo. So why did Eren feel the need to go overboard and beyond, really going for that A+ score? I do believe this latest chapter has given you an insight into Eren, but only part of it, which is why basing it solely on the new reveals, the answer to why Eren has kept going is a combination of freedom plus the initial disappointment with the current state of affairs in the outside world. This was not the dream that stemmed from Armin's book. I do believe that Eren eventually had to free all the Colossal Titans. For starters, really freeing his people, the people that the Elden King forced his sentence into. And second, removing the symbol of the walls, really the restriction of freedom around the island. It is very interesting to notice two extremes here in the Attack on Titan story. The Elden King, the guy helped to bring a downfall to the current state of affairs regarding Titans. After that, he was a passive guy doing almost nothing, establishing this temporary peace. On the flip side, Eren on the extreme opposite end. Almost to say, no, screw you Mr. King. Really a colossal middle finger towards him. As a side parallel to this latest attack on Marley, perhaps due to this being the 75th anniversary, this very much reminds me of the Hiroshima and the tragedy overall in Japan, which was committed by the US, especially with it being all done this week. I've just been seeing it covered non-stop on TV here lately. Naturally, the events are not one-to-one the same. At a high level, you do have two sides at a war. One side got attacked, aka Pearl Harbor, and then that attacked nation retaliated, going far past destroying the military and soldiers. What does that remind you of? Eren is seriously racing past that this chapter. The nuking in total had about 130,000 to over 200,000 deaths, including after effects. If Eren had launched this attack in what seemed to be the city area of Marley near the water, I think this comparison would have been super accurate. But no, Eren will keep on going further. By the way, recall the weird burn marks from the bodies left over? I now know why they seem oddly familiar. They weirdly seem similar to the eerie shadows or marks left by the nukes. I'm really curious about this. I do hope that Isayama does speak about some of this stuff in the future, years after the finale. But anyway, at the start of this I did ask, is the Code Geass route still possible? I would ask a different question. Is what seems like a Code Geass connection even that strong anymore? Since I've seen some confusion, let me first clear up my position on a Code Geass type ending. I would much rather see the Attack on Titan story have its own type of ending. One where you don't have people saying, oh, recall Attack on Titan. It was a masterpiece, until they went for the easy Code Geass ending. Or an ending that this previous other anime had already done. Whether that's Code Geass, Evangelion, freaking Boruto's dad. This is a huge reason why I don't want a Code Geass ending, or similar ending that's already been done. That said, if Isayama is advancing Eren towards some sort of twist or redemption post killing hundreds of thousands, if not more, it isn't the only viable option, but the Code Geass route is definitely one way to do it. At a high level, this does involve three main parts. 1. Making yourself the world enemy, which Eren has already done perfectly. All of this would force the world enemies to come together. You got Paradise Island, plus the Marley Avengers already sticking together. Check. As for the rest of the world, still to be determined. Although at this point, something tells me they'd take any possible savior with open arms. 3. Ultimately, this would have that global threat shouldering the blame, the sin, and all of the death, with the result of sacrificing themselves for a brighter future. Attack on Titan at the moment is 2/3 of the way there, but the last point has not happened, not yet. Really quickly, I will point out, Code Geass is not the first and only series to have done this, but for most anime fans, this is what you immediately think of. If you know any other series with a similar ending, I would love to hear them. Maybe I'll check them out. For the latest Attack on Titan chapter, how similar is Eren really to Lelouch? Especially now that the Colossal Titans have reached Marley. How bad was Lelouch? So super quick overview. Lelouch of course did a lot of questionable things. For direct kills, his body count actually wasn't all that high. Lelouch then controlling people against their will and then killing with the Geass. Now you're getting into the hundreds and way beyond that. It now becomes a matter of how you splice it, since Lelouch was justifiably fighting against this corrupt royal government, one point being the end of Code Geass Season 1. That had been the most casualties up until that point. This actually brings a strong parallel between Lelouch and Eren, whether he truly believed it or was only using it as a justification for his carnage. Lelouch was advancing forward for his sister Nunnally. Flipping it to Eren, you do have the idea of freedom, but behind that it's for Armin, Mikasa, and Paradise Island. Freedom as a whole for them. Fast forward to Code Geass Season 2, you had a repeat of the war in Tokyo, plus what was pretty much World War III at the very end. Arguably, there was also some wiggle room here. Once again, one could argue this was a justifiable war versus a corrupt royalty in power. And yes, that is shorthanding the hell out of that. Perhaps the first biggest offense from the number of things Lelouch committed was outright brainwashing soldiers to become his slaves. Eren would not approve, although is Eren really that different? It is true that Eren didn't create the enslaved and trapped Colossal Titans, but he sure as hell is using them for his world destruction plan. Ironically, the worst offense for innocent people was actually not by Lelouch, but really a consequence of Lelouch's much earlier action, the curse of the Geass on Suzaku. You had Suzaku that was about to die, and he actually accepted that it was his way to atone for his sins. Yet the Levi Geass kicked in, and the rest was history. So yeah, talking about nukes, Freya let it rip. According to the anime, over 25 million people in Tokyo got immediately deleted off the face of the world. 25 million. Eren, you got some catching up to do. Which means yes, Eren has not gotten that high of a kill count, but just give it a couple of days. Even then, for Code Geass, it really seemed like Lelouch had a bit of an out, since Suzaku was taking most of the blame for the nuke. And I'm talking about for anime people, not in the actual story. For the Attack on Titan story, you don't have someone else to blame, this is all on Eren now. Speaking of which, is Eren only a head plus a spine? In other words, it seems like Eren is in this position where he can no longer turn back. Thanks a lot, Gabby. It could be funny, but Gabby could be the Suzaku roll of this tale, at least for anime people. I'm really predicting there's going to be some head scene coming up. You're about to see this surreal scene with Mikasa and Armin chatting with the older Eren, almost like a family talk v2. Watch, it's going to be funny if there were clapping involved. Going back to the intro of this chapter, the thoughts from Eren here made it seem like the victory was set in stone. Depending on which camp you're on, Eren is either going to be your greatest hero or straight out worst villain. But let me try to change that view. It seems that the biggest threat and challenge isn't Eren, but instead Eren trying to overcome what is seemingly this future Eren, or this destined fate of the future that he saw coming years back. Which leads to the current mystery at hand. Did Eren succeed in changing any of it? Or did Eren give in to freedom, letting the events run their course? Personally, I would love to see some type of redemption for Mr. Freedom coming, Code Geass route or otherwise. Hopefully the final panel isn't just Eren showing off this massive destruction to that kid. Let's see how Eren completes the story he started. By the way, definitely check out Bookwalker. They got all the Attack on Titan manga, and this includes the Lost Girl stories plus Before the Fall story. Go over there and take a look around. Use my code Foxen to get $5 off. This goes for any book, by the way. Anyway, bonus question for hardcore fans. What is the series finale that you would like Attack on Titan to follow? And it doesn't have to be anime. Check out my juicy SAO video on all the knights, and I'll see you guys later.